It famously took the breakout success of Dark Souls and a player petition to get FromSoftware to start bringing its games to PC. Until 2011, almost everything the Japanese developer made was exclusive to consoles, and that included 15 games, including a whole bunch of spin-offs in the Armored Core series. And honestly, I think that's a huge shame, because Armored Core on PC could have been huge. MechWarrior was once one of the kings of PC gaming, and Armored Core would have been a perfect, more actiony, less simmy companion. Well, that didn't happen, but about 25 years later, there is finally an Armored Core game on PC. I've played about 5 hours of it, and I think this game fucking rips. I'm Wes from PC Gamer, and I recently got to play Armored Core 6, which is exactly what I hoped it would be. It's incredibly fast-paced, it's empowering, it puts you on a mech that can fly, dash, and dodge in all directions. It's really customizable, so you can be a lightweight mech with like huge vertical jumps, or you can switch to tank treads and load on the heaviest missile launchers you can afford. The controls demand fast reflexes, but they're mercifully pretty simple, even with all your weaponry and mobility. It's really nicely balanced. And the story of this game is just grimy and mean. Your pilot is the pawn of these uncaring corporations that are all pettily vying for power. Even though the density environments can sometimes be breathtaking, the dialogue is there to constantly remind you that you're just there to labor for someone else, and that victory that made you feel like hot shit a second ago was really just a line on a spreadsheet for one of these monolithic corporations. Basically, what I'm getting at is, this is quintessential Armored Core, even in some ways that I think longtime fans of the series have been worried about. And that's kind of a big deal, because as much as FromSoftware has been saying, we're making an Armored Core game, the follow-up question from just about everyone over and over again has been, so how much Dark Souls is in there? Well, from the 5 hours or so I've played, the answer is almost none, and I think that's actually a great strength for AC6. It's proof or a reminder that FromSoftware's developers can make different kinds of games, that their knack for action, for over-the-top bosses, for settings that get under your skin, didn't start and end with the Souls games. And man, is Armored Core 6 a great palate cleanser from the open world of Elden Ring. Instead of that boundless exploration, here you've got a mission to complete, someone or something to blow up, and you'll probably be done in about 5 minutes. Before I attended a preview event of Armored Core 6 where I got to play through the entire first chapter of the game, I spent some time with Armored Core 3 from 2002 and Armored Core 4 from 2006. Those two games represent different eras for Armored Core. AC3 is a lot slower paced with often very short missions and a brutal economy that'll make you go broke if you're too cavalier with your bullets and missiles. AC4 is much closer to the new AC6 in terms of your speed and firepower, but is definitely a bit harder to control. My time with those games served me well though, because I was immediately able to find my groove in 6 and get through even the big boss encounters in just a few tries. So, okay, what are the main things I'm talking about when I say this is quintessential Armored Core? Well, the first thing I want to talk about are the missions. When I got to see a hands-off preview of AC6 a couple months ago, I got the impression that missions in this game were going to be much longer than what I was used to in Armored Core 3, where I could finish a lot of the missions in under 5 minutes. Now, that hands-off preview was from Chapter 2 of this game, so it does seem reasonable that missions are going to get a bit longer and more involved after the first chapter that I've now gotten to play for myself. But honestly, I think I overestimated how long the average mission is going to be. Based on Chapter 1, I'd say most of the missions in AC6 will have you in and out in 5 to 10 minutes, 15 tops. Maybe it's a bit more when there's a boss fight or you have to retry a few times, but on repeat playthroughs of some of the Chapter 1 missions, once I'd upgraded my mech, I was breezing through some of them in just 4 or 5 minutes. That length of mission just feels right for Armored Core, because for most of these durations you are locked in and focused. You're dodging tons of incoming fire, you're managing your boost meter, you're staying on top of all your weapon cooldowns. It's exhilarating, but it's definitely best in short bursts. It's a really different experience than the long treks through areas in the Souls games, but each approach suits its setting well. In Armored Core, you're a mercenary in an incredibly powerful machine. You get in and you get out. The Souls games are about being an adventurer and surviving a long, arduous quest. Okay, another thing that's quintessentially Armored Core, the lock-on system. I've seen some longtime Armored Core fans express a worry about the hard lock in Armored Core 6, which works the way lock-on does in many 3D games. It directs your attacks at the target and also keeps them framed with the camera. The older Armored Core games didn't work that way at all. A component of your mech effectively controlled how big your targeting reticle was, and you had to keep them within that reticle to have your attacks automatically aim at the closest target. Camera control was all on you. So Armored Core 6 kind of mixes the old and the new here. When you get close enough to an enemy, your weapons will automatically lock onto them, but you'll still be fully in control of your camera. AC6 still has an upgradable mech part that affects your accuracy, with separate specs for close, medium, and long range assist. And it does add a new hard lock option called Target Assist that's comparable to the Souls games. It helps you keep your camera centered on a single enemy. This is what some people are worried about. This addition feels like a must to me though because of the speed that Armored Core 6 moves at, and in practice, I don't think longtime fans are going to be too upset about it, because 1, you don't have to use it, and 2, Target Assist actually comes with a distinct trade-off. Here's what the tutorial text in the first level says verbatim. When enabled, Target Assist will automatically orient the camera and your AC towards the current target. However, this comes at the cost of reduced aiming precision. Consider the situation and your level of skill when choosing whether to enable this feature. Now, in practice, I absolutely noticed the difference that it's talking about there. I'd hard lock onto highly mobile enemy ACs and watch my missiles splash harmlessly on either side of them as they dodged around. There's definitely still going to be an art to keeping an enemy in your sights to land your shots, especially when they're highly mobile. Okay, a couple other classic Armored Core features I want to highlight. 1. AC6 brings back the arena, where you have 1v1 battles against NPC mechs. It's fun, great way to encourage you to try out different builds, love it. One of the rewards to the arena ties into a level of customization that goes beyond swapping parts in and out of your mech, called OS tuning. You won't unlock it until a few hours into the campaign, but this system lets you spend a resource to unlock some permanent, more meta upgrades for your mech. For example, one called Weight Control lets you go out on a mission even if your mech is overburdened with heavy weaponry. Now, a couple of the other unlocks here harken back to older games in the series. There's one called Weapon Bay, which lets you give up your back weapons for 2 extra hand weapons that you can then swap to with the controller's shoulder buttons. Now, while this isn't quite the same thing, for me it brought to mind Armored Core 4's weapon system, which would have you swapping between firing your back and hand weapons with the same shoulder buttons. There's also an OS tuning unlock called Manual Aiming to independently control your firing reticle, and a quick turn option that lets you perform snap 90-degree turns, which is an upgrade that I found invaluable in the much slower moving Armored Core 3 back in the day. So even with hard lock or target assist being in the game, FromSoftware felt like this feature would still be important enough to include in AC6. Okay, finally I want to talk about the stagger system a little bit. In AC6, repeatedly hitting enemy mechs will build up a stagger meter that eventually stuns them and exposes them to extra damage. Now, this may seem like a system pulled wholesale from Sekiro Shadow Die Twice, but it works really well with Armored Core's open-ended sandbox. Different types of weapons deal more or less stagger damage, and more or less damage to staggered enemies. And the way you stagger enemies honestly isn't much different from getting stunned by heavy weapon hits in the older AC games. So, unless something goes really wrong after the first chapter, Armored Core 6 is a dream mech game for me. It's fast and really demanding, but it offers so much freedom to customize your mech, and it frames its challenge around getting through these short, intensive encounters rather than long slogs. By the end of my demo session, I was replaying missions with different builds just to see if I could do them better and faster. I really can't wait to sink my teeth into the full game and see the entire arsenal of mecha parts at my disposal. And that's not far off now. Armored Core 6 is out on August 25th. For a bunch more coverage of the game, including interviews with FromSoftware, head over to PCGamer.com. That's it for me. Thanks for watching.